Meanwhile, Republicans seem to be really starting to freak out a little bit in terms of November. And you can see it in multiple ways, not the least of which is that the Republicans feel like they have to address. Now, and I want to make this very clear. Nothing we're going to get from the democratically controlled Congress, House, or the Republican-controlled Senate is going to be sufficient, I think, for what needs to happen, even at a federal level, right? Because most of this has to happen at a local level. But there is movement, which is surprising, not just obviously coming from the Democrats in the House, but Republicans in the Senate, which I think is indication of just they understand where public sentiment is. And Donald Trump is freaking out about this because he was really counting on a big black vote for him in November. And I'm not really actually being facetious.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is, counting on chipping off a couple of points of the black vote. I mean, clearly, that was in all their ads. I mean, that's the plan.
That seems to be out the window a little bit, and I think it's freaked him out.
I would say so. I think the ads were sort of undermined by the gassing of the protesters.
Yeah, I think that may have, and just things like, George Floyd is looking down upon us, and he's very excited about these unemployment numbers. I suspect that was probably not met in I don't know. I don't know in what possible community. Maybe Larry Kudlow was like the only person who was like,
yeah, George Floyd could be more excited.
And just the next thing we're going to see is presumably, we're going to see, or I should say, the Republicans believe that this defund the police is going to be, or is a little bit of a toehold for them. That the idea is that they can sort of convince people that the police are the victims here in some way, and that the idea of defunding just goes too far. This is what they're going to attempt to do. I just don't think it's going to work. I think we've hit a critical mass on some level where the right-wing narratives are just not going to gain traction in the way that they have in the past. And I think there's, several unique reasons for it. In addition to obviously, what we've seen in the past couple of weeks, you start having people protesting police violence and they are met with police violence. There's not a lot of arguments that you need to make at that point. Here is Sean Hannity. And they are, you can just watch Fox News to find out how sort of like lost they are in terms of what the narrative should be here. And here is Sean Hannity. He wants to make it absolutely clear. He's not making any comparisons between the way George Floyd was treated and the way Donald Trump was treated. But he wants you to see that there is a comparison.
Exposed how corrupt, high-ranking law enforcement officials tried to rig an election and destroy Donald Trump at all costs, to overturn an election. Even the president himself, it's not the same thing as what happened to George Floyd, but it's horrific. He was a victim of crooked cops. Now, again, not the same circumstances. I'm not making any comparison. A bad cop is a bad cop. And by all means, by the way, the damage was real to the country. The damage in Minneapolis is real to the country. And that the case, what was done in George Floyd case, should never happen.
Yeah. Don't make a comparison. Just bring me up in the same context. Thanks, Sean.
I gotta think that as far as like if you were to go to school and get a PhD in not making comparisons, or I should say in making comparisons, that would be the way that you would do it. I mean, just saying, I'm not making a comparison, but on one hand you have this, and on the other hand you have that. I'm not making a comparison, but look at these two things.
I'm not making he even goes down. I'm not making comparison, but look at them. I'm not making comparison, but they're both bad for the country. I'm not making a comparison, but bad things are bad things. I mean, he made actually almost 3 discrete comparisons.
In fact, at one point, he gets confused about what he's talking about was bad for the country.
Yes.
He was trying to intertwine them so much.
Yes.
Listen, the way that George Trump has been treated is not a comparison to the way that Donald Floyd was treated.
Derek, Robert Mueller was my Derek Chauvin.
I'm not making a comparison, but Nelson Mandela is all I'll say.
Comey and I also butted heads.
Yes.
Chauvin, Comey, dirty cop's a dirty cop.
The level of desperation that they're into right now, as they see so much of their project being threatened. I don't think that we are really at the point where their project is as threatened as they I think are indicating. But it's nice to see at least a little bit.
George Floyd and I were stablemates.
We will get into some of the the reforms that we're seeing both from lawmakers and from the courts. There was an interesting decision handed down yesterday in terms of a civil case against some police. We will get to that in a moment. Just want to let you know that